My Friend Hasn't Been the Same Since His Camping Trip, Part 3, by Blackwing16. I'm starting to become a shell of a human being right now. The past few days have been so messed up. The only thing that's keeping me going right now is the thought of tearing whatever this thing is apart, even though the more likely scenario is me being torn apart. I haven't been home in days, and I'm currently living out of a small, vacant house I found in the woods off some hiking trails my freshman year of high school. Here's what happened. I sat in B's basement for about a half an hour, and I only left once I felt I was actually safe. I cautiously walked up the stairs to where I had heard the horrible scream, and I was greeted with a gruesome sight in B's bedroom. There was blood everywhere. I mean, it was covering the walls like a thick coat of paint. To make it worse, there were bits of flesh scattered throughout the room as well. I couldn't handle the sight and smell anymore, and I puked in the hallway. After regaining my composure, I still felt lightheaded. I noticed that his window was smashed. I was worried that the scream I had heard was from B being torn apart by some intruder. However, I know for a fact that no human is capable of creating a sound such as the one that I heard not too long ago. I had no idea what to do. I was freaking out. I wanted to call 911, but what would I even say to them? Hey, my friend's house got broken into by some giant monster that tore him apart, and I appear to be standing in what used to be his chest cavity. Yeah, that wouldn't go down too well, and I didn't want the police thinking that I had anything to do with this after all. Me and B were in the house alone, so I would look pretty guilty right off the bat. I was on my own with this. I quickly left the room and started to suffer from a panic attack. I couldn't catch my breath, and I felt as if the world was collapsing around me. I ran downstairs and tried to calm myself. I sat on the couch, and apparently I had tired myself out from all of the panic that filled my body because at some point, I fell asleep. I woke up at about 3 a.m. to a phone call. It was my girlfriend, T. I picked up and she sounded incredibly scared. I asked if she was okay, and she responded quietly with, "There's something in my house." I was about to call the police to her location when I paused and noticed that she said something, not someone. What do you mean something? I asked. I saw it climb through a window that looked out into the woods behind my house. It was too tall and skinny to be a person, she whispered, the fear audible in her voice. I asked her if anyone else was home with her, and she said that it was just her for the weekend. I told her to stay calm, hide, and I would be there as fast as possible, and that I would stay on the phone with her. I sprinted out of B's house, almost forgetting about the hellish scene that had become his room, and I jumped into my car. I've never driven so fast. I was going 65 in a 30-mile-per-hour zone, all the way to T's house. The whole time while racing over there, I spoke into the phone to try and calm her down. She started crying at one point out of fear. My heart was starting to break. I kept thinking to myself that I cannot lose her. My thoughts were interrupted by her whispering, shaking voice. It's standing outside my door. It's not moving. It's just standing there motionless. It has red eyes. Please get here quick, she said through her crying. As I was pulling into her driveway, I heard the same hellish roar. It blared through the phone as well as through the windows of her house. I pulled into her driveway and bolted to the front door. Luckily, I knew where her dad kept a gun in case of intruders. I threw open a closet door on the first floor and rummaged through until I had my hands on his 12 gauge. At that moment, I heard frantic footsteps upstairs, followed by screaming. I was about to run up the stairs when T plowed into me from around the corner. We hit the floor hard as I began to stand back up, disorientated for a split second. I could make out two red lights getting brighter from the darkness of the hallway that was before me after an ear-piercing scream from T as the creature made its way into the light and revealed its nightmarish feature. I cocked the shotgun and fired a slug right into its chest. The impact of the shotgun slug sent the creature slamming back into the ground. We used this time as an opportunity to run out the front door and make it to my car. I opened the driver's side door with such haste that I dropped the shotgun. However, it didn't seem that I would be needing the gun due to the unwounded but incredibly annoyed creature standing in the doorway in the front of T's house. It let out another roar, which put enough fear into me to slam on the gas and get out of there. As I got to the road at the end of her driveway, I watched in horror as this thing full-on sprinted at impossible speeds after us. T was screaming and crying, which panicked me all the more. I pushed down harder on the gas, trying to put some more distance between us and the creature. I came around a sharp turn in the road. I was going too fast to turn, and because of this, the car rolled off into the small brush of the woods that lined the road. T and I weren't badly injured, but we were both stuck in a car that was now upside down. I told her not to panic, that I would get us out of here. As I reached for my seatbelt to unbuckle it, the sound of large, fast footsteps approached the upturned car. A large thud echoed from the top of the car, as if something had just jumped onto it. T looked at me with worried eyes. I was able to meet them before the window next to her shattered and she was ripped out. I watched in horror, tears in my eyes, and unable to move as the creature tore her apart in front of me. I could feel my whole world crashing down before me. It tore into her flesh like a knife through butter and scattered her into dozens of blood-soaked pieces. It wasn't eating her. It seemed as if it was taunting me in a way. After it had finished, it stopped in its tracks, staring at me with bright, glowing red eyes. Whatever fear and sadness I had felt in the moments before now disappeared into vicious anger. I ripped myself free from my upturned car, and I was able to make my way out. I had a large gash on my left leg, so I leaned against the side of the car for balance. The creature was standing there watching me. It seemed almost as if it was studying me. I met its gaze. We locked eyes for what seemed like an eternity. Anger was coursing through every vein in my body. Adrenaline began to kick in, and I started to limp over towards the creature. I was so full of hate that it clouded my thinking. There was no way that I could make a scratch on this monster, but at that moment I didn't care. I picked up a sharp scrap from my car and closed in on the stationary creature. I was about 10 feet away when it started to smile, revealing its rows of blood-soaked, needle-like teeth. Fear was something non-existent to me at this point. I raised the scrap of metal in my hand, and I was about to slash at the creature when it let out another roar and sprinted off into the trees. I stood there for a few moments, adrenaline freeing from my body, and the reality of what had just happened rushed in. I just watched one of the most important people in my life be torn apart in front of me. I sat down and cried for a long time. It wasn't until I saw headlights in the distance that I did stand up and move out of sight. I didn't want to have to explain anything to anyone. All I wanted to do was to get away. I limped my way to a department store not too far away. The streets were empty, so I didn't have to worry about anyone finding me in the grave state that I was in. I knew the owner of the department store well, and I knew that he kept a key to the back door under one of the wooden pallets near the door. I took what I needed to treat my leg, and I made the long walk to a vacant, off-the-grid house that I knew of. This thing seemed to be killing things around me, so I didn't want to endanger anyone else. I've been off the grid for about 3 days now. I haven't seen the creature since it killed T. I just heard something rustling in the bushes outside. Hopefully, it's the creature, and hopefully it just kills me to put me out of my misery, the misery that has become my life. If I turn out to be alive in the coming days, I'll update you when I can.